One afternoon in the early 2000s, Eric Fensler is spending his lunch break at the Virgin Megastore in Chicago near his job. He'd often go there to try out some music at the listening stations and see if there was anything good on sale. And this time, there was something good on sale. G.I. Joe the movie, for just $5. He immediately bought it, and when he got home, ripped it to his computer, as well as the original cartoon PSAs that were included. Little did he know, this moment would alter the course of online culture forever. This is the story of the G.I. Joe PSA parodies. This video is sponsored by Raycon. I've gone on a lot of walks lately because, there's not that much else to do, and every time I go, my Raycon earbuds are with me. They sound great, fit comfortably, and stay connected to my phone. They're easily the best wireless earbuds that I've owned. You know who agrees with me? That's right, Melissa Etheridge. Raycon earbuds are about half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and they sound just as great as the other top audio brands that you know. The latest model, the Everyday E25, is their best one yet, with 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a more compact design that gives you a nice noise-isolating fit. And it comes in fun new colors. Just go to buyraycon.com/wang or click the link in the description below to get 15% off your order. When I was a little kid, G.I. Joe was hands down my favorite cartoon. I had the VHS tape of G.I. Joe the movie that I taped off of TV, commercials and everything, and I'd pretty much watch it every single day. I very clearly remember I had this shitty toy guitar, and every time you got to that scene when the Royal Guards come up through the ice and start fighting the G.I. Joes, I would swing that shitty guitar around until one day it broke. And then Sergeant Slaughter shows up, and it's even more hype because now it's like G.I. Joe and wrestling together at last. In fact, let me go on a little detour and share this story about G.I. Joe and wrestling, because I'm never going to have another chance to share it on the channel. It's a real good story, but just how stupid I was as a kid. So one day I get up and my mother convinces me that King Kong Bundy, the wrestler King Kong Bundy, is terrorizing the neighborhood. He's just going around fighting people for some unknown reason. And then we go to this apartment where my mother's friend is fighting King Kong Bundy behind the door that we can't open. I don't know how they did it, but King Kong Bundy gets defeated. We don't see him, he must have escaped out the back or something, and in his wake he leaves behind an action figure. Like he dropped it like it was an RPG and we were looting him. The G.I. Joe character, Raptor. Somehow my mother convinces me that this character is actually also named King Kong Bundy. And I believed her despite the fact that I already knew how to read. In fact, I actually had learned how to read from the file cards on the back of G.I. Joe action figures. Which I guess was a major unintentional win for G.I. Joe since, they did this thing where they tried to be educational. It was a really common thing actually for cartoons in that time period, but unlike a lot of them where they tried to work in the educational, moral themes into the actual plot, what G.I. Joe did was they just tacked on these PSAs at the end of the show. The PSAs generally had nothing to do with the episode. It'd be things like, hey kids, don't pet strange dogs. Don't walk on a frozen pond. But I'm sure, even showing you the clips of those PSAs, you're not thinking of those original lessons. As I'm sure you know, those PSAs took on a complete life of their own back in the early 2000s. That was when an aspiring young filmmaker named Eric Fensler made parodies of these PSAs. Parodies that, if you've been watching my Twitch stream, you kind of know that sometimes they just come out of my mouth. Like there's never been a time in my life when I stopped quoting them for no reason. He turns them into things like, help computer.
Pork chop sandwiches!
Oh my dad!
If you know them, you probably first saw them in E-Bomb's world, but their story actually begins a bit earlier. So after Eric picked up his copy of G.I. Joe the movie from the Virgin Megastore and put it on his computer, he got to work on these PSA parodies mostly as just a project for fun. He definitely never intended for them to be this big viral internet sensation. In fact, he never even intended to upload them. In general, he just wasn't a very online guy, and he was kind of intimidated by the idea of making a website for this stuff, and whenever he had to, he would defer to his Uncle Joe. In fact, for quite a while, the only place you could see these was in real life. Around the time that he made these PSA parodies, Eric also made a short film with his friend and longtime collaborator, Doug Lussenhop. The film was entitled Printer Jam. After its completion, Printer Jam was screened at a number of film festivals and gallery showings. And when it was shown, it was often accompanied by these PSA parodies. Unsurprisingly, no matter what else aired at these film festivals, the PSA parodies stole the show. I mean, really, at this point, you're at the ground level of the invention of an entire style of comedy. People just hadn't really seen anything like this before. As Eric made more of these PSAs, they would have screenings for them at the Heaven Gallery in Chicago. The crowds were getting larger and larger, and eventually Eric also made VHS tapes of them so people could keep them. The success of these videos was contained entirely to the flesh world until one day, the Heaven Gallery uploaded them to their website along with Printer Jam. It quickly became clear that the power of these videos would not be contained to Chicago. The growing popularity of these videos would become apparent as they would cause the Heaven Gallery website to exceed its monthly bandwidth, taking the entire website down. This distribution problem would be solved as eBaum's World and later on Heavy.com began to show these videos. And this is the point where I think most of us found it. In fact, I think this was actually the first thing that I saw on eBaum's World ever. It was either that or the Frederick Fox videos. Although the exact number is unknown, I think it's safe to say that probably millions of people watched these videos before they were even on YouTube. Eric has noted in interviews, though, that he was never really concerned about that sort of thing and had no idea how many people actually looked at them. The only reason he even had any kind of idea how popular they were was because he would frequently receive fan emails and eBaum's World constantly asked him to make more. And in total, he would make 25 of them between 2003 and 2004. They came out very sporadically. I recall checking the eBaum's World page for them constantly, and every once in a while there'd be a new one. It was like that same feeling of watching syndicated Dragon Ball Z back in the day, and then every several months there'd be a new episode translated. But then as the popularity of these videos came to a head, someone else became aware of them, and that someone else was Hasbro. Hasbro, who owned the copyrights to the cartoons and wasn't happy about this. So they went and sent cease and desist letters to both eBaum's World and to Eric himself. According to the cease and desist letter, these edited PSAs are unauthorized derivative works and therefore violate their copyright. They were also concerned that people may think that Hasbro is authorizing these PSAs. Because, you know, it's a realistic concern that somebody might think that Hasbro is warning kids about a computer man that wants you to stop all the downloading. And if Hasbro were to do such a thing, it would be disastrous for their brand. After receiving the letter, eBaum's World defiantly posted it to the top of the page where they continued to distribute the PSAs. Kind of ironic considering that only a few years later, YTM&D would be doing the same thing to eBaum's World.
You have now officially crossed the line.
But Eric didn't have the same bravado, and understandably so. Even though Eric was very clearly in the right here, I mean, I don't think you can get a more clear-cut case of fair use. Oftentimes, our legal system isn't really a battle of who's right and who's wrong, as much as it is, can you afford to defend yourself? And Eric could not afford to defend himself from the Hasbro Corporation. He explained what happened in an interview with WFMU. Hasbro sent the cease and desist letter and said, "Take them off the internet," or legal action. I talked to my Uncle Joe, who is also a lawyer, and he said I had a case, but do you want to go through it all? Do you have a lot of money, young man? I said, no, I don't have any money. I'm broke, so I took them off. No harm, no foul. Plus, I was on to making something different anyway, working a full-time job, a family to protect. It wasn't a big deal other than it had gotten all the way to them. I never thought Hasbro would see the PSAs. Then eventually YouTube came out and they were on other sites, so who cares? Try as they may, Hasbro couldn't contain these videos, and Eric was on to bigger and better things. For example, you got those C-Lab promos on Adult Swim.
Who's ready to ride? Dude, I'm telling you to get the fast one! Dude, let's go! Get everything!
They were made in very much the same style, and once you watch them knowing that Eric made them, you're like, how did I not realize this was the same guy? And Eric's work with Adult Swim didn't end there. In 2004, Eric's friend Doug, the very same Doug who had directed Printer Jam, would apply for an internship on the Adult Swim show Tom Goes to the Mayor. They accept him for the job, and it turns out to be a lot more involved than your typical internship. His main focus was on getting behind-the-scenes footage from the show. Eventually, he edits together a video of this footage, and they like it so much that it becomes part of an actual episode. And according to Doug in an interview with Fast Company, if you look at the episode, you can kinda see where the seeds start to form. For Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job. So after this, Doug quickly graduates from intern to crew member. He takes on a more active role in the show, keeps editing, and eventually his collaboration continues into the awesome show. And along the way, Doug brings up his old pal and collaborator, Eric Fensler, of the famous G.I. Joe PSAs. So they wind up taking Eric as a writer for the show. He stays on for most of the show's run and continues to collaborate with Tim and Eric on other projects, such as this Flying Lotus music video. And in addition to his work on Tim and Eric, he's also worked on some commercials that you've probably seen. As a part of the Wyden & Kennedy ad agency, he's also written and directed advertisements for companies like Nike and Old Spice. And that's not to say that he only does commercial work anymore. As recently as a year ago, he appeared in a sketch with Doug, entitled Camping with Fudge. It's kind of a brief, nonsensical piece, and when Eric starts talking, you can't help but hear the connection to the G.I. Joe PSAs.
Close your mouth.
But anyway, that's the story of Eric Fensler and the G.I. Joe PSA parodies. A phenomenon that shaped the early days of online comedy and lit the path for where we are today. If you like this video, check out my video about YTMND versus E-Bombs World. I'm out of here.